All right. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome back. We are making our final mock draft for the 2025 NFL Draft. This is going to be a fun one. It's going to be a long, lengthy video, but we got to do it. Draft's coming up here on Thursday, so I'm excited. Justin's excited. How's it going,
Sure.
Justin? How we doing today?
And I can't complain. Like you said, we got the mock draft. Our mock draft today, but we got the actual draft coming up soon. WrestleMania this weekend. Looking forward to that. And the NBA playoffs are underway as well as NHL about to
Exactly.
get underway too. So it's a good time being a sports fan. It's a good time, and especially non-sports related. The weather's starting to turn. It's getting nicer.
Yep.
That's exciting too. So yeah, it's a good time to be alive.
Of course, man. So, yeah, let's just get straight into it. So, I guess I'll go first and then we'll alternate and then you'll pick your first pick and then we'll go from there.
That works for
Um,
me.
but yeah, we already have our mock drafts all selected here. We're not doing it on the spot. We have it written here in our notes. So, this should be fun. But yeah, let's
Mhm.
get into it. So, the Titans, they're on the clock. Who are the Tennessee Titans getting? Well, this one, I think everyone knows at this point of what's going to go down, and that's going to be Cam Ward going number one to the Tennessee Titans. This is the best quarterback prospect in the draft. The Titans, they're trying to rebuild their franchise here. Will Levis is not the answer, and they're getting the best quarterback off the board. I don't know if this is the best overall pick for their franchise. This guy has a lot of work that needs to be done. He's a developmental prospect. He's not pro ready as of yet, and has all the talent in the world, but he just needs to master his game, and hopefully Callahan over there can do that for the Titans. But yeah, the Titans, they are more than a quarterback away from being a contender in this league, so they want to have their own quarterback. And Callahan, he inherited a Will Levis, so now at this point he gets the quarterback that he wants in Cam Ward, and we'll see how it goes from there. But yeah, that's who I have to pick at number one. I think that's just a no-brainer because that's what all the mock drafts are saying, and everyone's telling you. Even Cam Ward on Fortnite saying, "Oh, the best running backs in the league." Tajay Spears and Tony Pollard. Like you already know he's a Titan at this point.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm right with you. It's kind of like an unkept secret. Everyone knows it's going to be Cam Ward number one, barring some like what Adam Schefter said, some unexpected changes leading up into the draft. They want to do something different there. But yeah, I think it does make sense. They do need a quarterback, and you made a good point. Callahan kind of inherited Will Levis, wasn't his guy, and they have a new GM in there too. So they probably want to get their own guy in there. And Cam Ward, he has what we've been talking about the last couple of episodes. He has a high ceiling, so the sky's the limit with him. He has a lot of ability. With him though, in the red area, he's got to not risk it. He does. He is a little bit of a gunslinger. He could be a little bit risky, and in the red zone, he could force throws. He could get picked off. So he just got to be a little bit smarter in those situations. But I think everything with him is coachable, and I think he could be a solid quarterback in this league. So I don't knock the pick at all. Yes, you could argue there are a couple other guys that should go number one, and they're going to come off the board here shortly. But yeah, I'm with you, Cam Ward. It's an unkept secret, and yeah, I think that's the first pick. And then coming down from here, it's a crapshoot. This is where it gets tricky. So let's get into the Cleveland Browns, Steve.
Yeah. So right off the board, man, like there's two generational prospects, right? You got Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter. But what do the Browns need more is how I'm going with this pick. And I think the Browns, they don't need Abdul Carter. They have Miles Garrett. They have edge rushers. And the defense is solid. But they also do need another, lockdown corner. They already have Denzel Ward, but, bringing in Travis Hunter might be an option. And then on the offensive side of the ball, they really don't have a playmaker, other than what Jerry
They have
Judy.
Judy, they have
They,
Njoku.
they have Njoku, but
Mm-hmm.
Travis Hunter will be the best playmaker on that offensive side of the ball.
Got Nick Chubb
Um,
too.
and they now Nick Chubb's a free agent. He's
Oh,
not.
is he a free agent?
He's a free
My
agent. So
apologies.
yes. So with that being said, I have Travis Hunter going off the board here at 2. I think this is a position that they need more,
Mhm.
and he's definitely a generational talent. He wants to play both sides of the ball, and I think he definitely will, but I don't think he'll play 100% of the time. Like, I think he'll have packages, and I
Mhm.
don't know which side the Browns prefer him to play as. I would probably say on the offensive side of the ball more than the defensive side of the ball because they need someone to be a playmaker, and I think he'll fit perfectly fine in Kevin Stefanski's offense. So I like the pick there at 2 for Travis Hunter. It just makes more sense from a Browns perspective. But, Abdul Carter and Myles Garrett, that would be, a tandem that would be one of the best in the league. So I wouldn't knock that pick if they go Abdul Carter at 2. But for me, what I think makes the most sense is having Travis Hunter there at 2. And then you can, plug and play at receiver and corner. So I like that pick at 2. And now we'll see what Justin thinks.
Yeah, it's tough because like what you said, Abdul Carter, pairing with Myles Garrett, that is pretty scary, right? Abdul Carter's getting comped to like a Micah Parsons, like having Micah and Myles Garrett on the same team come off the edge. That's a nightmare. And a lot of these teams nowadays, they go to the line of scrimmage, they go to the offensive line and the defensive line, and they want to bolster there. That's really important. So I was really considering that, but we're 2 for 2, man. I went with Travis Hunter. I thought he did a really good job explaining it as well. One thing is Andrew Berry, the GM, just to answer like where is he going to line up mostly? I did hear him say that they would have him more on the offensive side, so they'll have him more at receiver to start off. And what I've been listening to with like a Jay Gruden, who was a former coach of the then Redskins, now Commanders, he was saying like, look, the offensive playbook that changes rapidly. So like if you're going to play the Eagles, you're going to play the Giants, whoever team, that your playbook changes depending on what their defenses are doing. So they think like his talent at receiver, it's good, but they could polish it up. And I think what he's saying, like what he would do is training camp, he stick him over there, and then later on, as he gets more comfortable and familiar, because the offensive playbooks are ridiculous and a lot to learn, and eventually transition him over at the corner. But from what I've been seeing, is they're leaning more offense, more receiver to go for Travis Hunter. It's at least from what I heard from a couple GMs, and I think Joe Shane alluded to that too. Like they would have him play both sides, but maybe they'll think him more as a receiver too. You would know more about that, but yeah, I went with Travis Hunter. I heard a good comparison. He's like the Shohei Ohtani of football, just playing both sides. You have Shohei that pitches and he
Yeah.
can hit the ball. And that's just like the closest thing we're going to get in the NFL, a guy that could play both ways. Deion Sanders kind of did it a little bit too. He could receive, but he was more of a defensive back. But yeah, Travis Hunter has that kind of makeup. And yeah, for me as a fantasy owner, you too, Steve, I like hearing Travis Hunter being a receiver. That's just me.
Yeah.
I do
I
like
do
that.
too.
That makes me think like, when do I take him? But if he
Yeah.
does go to the Browns, is it Joe Flacco throwing him the ball? Like,
Yeah.
are they
That's the
going to take a
question.
quarterback later? Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. But yeah, Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter, you can't miss it. But I'm with you. I went with Travis Hunter, and
Yeah.
Travis Hunter did have a top 30 visit with the Browns, and that was also a sway to me because I did look at top 30 visits that teams did to help make my decisions.
Yeah, that's smart. You never know. Shador Sanders could be play at 2 as well.
Yeah, it's
Tough. I don't know
Shador
if
would
they
be
really love
interesting.
him. I haven't heard anything that they love him. So I think Travis Hunter makes the most sense. Um, but yeah, I guess I'm back on the clock here. The
Yes, sir.
G-men are on the clock. And this I've been contemplating back and forth, back and forth. Is it going to be Abdul Carter? Is it going to be Shador Sanders? Or will Travis Hunter fall to them at 3? I don't think Travis Hunter falls to them at 3. I think he goes to the Browns. But, this could be Dable and Shane's last time getting a quarterback. And they might want to get Shador Sanders at 3. But will they do that? I don't know, man. I've been leaning back and forth. But I think
Yeah.
they want to play it safe and they want to get the best prospect available on the board. And I said it a few weeks ago. I thought they were going to take Shador, but now I think they want to get a generational talent in Abdul Carter, and that's what I want them to do as well. and I think they take him here at 3. And this will be one of the most scariest defensive lines in the league if they make this move. You pair him up with Brian Burns, you pair him up with Dexter Lawrence and Kayvon. I don't know if Kayvon will be on the team much longer because he is in a contract year. Are they going to pick up his 5th-year option? I don't know. You could say Kayvon's been, kind of a bust because they drafted him early there at 5. He's been average at best. He hasn't been really special. But you pair Abdul Carter with Brian Burns, and, you have a rotation there. And, they want to kind of be like the Eagles, right? The Eagles had plenty of pass rushers, and that's why they won this league or won the Super Bowl and are one of the best in this league. And back when the Giants were good, they had a lot of pass rushers when they won those Super Bowls. They had Strahan, Osi Umenyiora, Justin Tuck. So if they want to go back to the good old days when they won the Super Bowl and the glory days there, they had a special defense and a defensive line that wreaked havoc. So I like the pick, Abdul Carter at 3, because with Shedeur Sanders, I'm not sold on him as a franchise quarterback. And when you're picking in the top 5, you want to pick a guy that could be a generational player, a franchise guy, a face of the franchise for years to come. And I think the Giants regret, passing on Micah Parsons a few years ago, and they got Kadarius Toney instead. And now Kadarius Toney's retired. So I think Abdul Carter at 3 makes the most sense. And they want to be, if they're trying to be a playoff contender and be a Super Bowl champion, you need to have guys that are generational talents and, have him on a rookie deal and try and rework and rebuild this team. You get Abdul Carter at 3 because I don't believe Shedeur Sanders is the answer at 3. So that's how I feel, and I think that's how the Giants should feel as well.
Yeah, this one, I've been hearing a lot. Like, I did see some clips of what Jones Shane said. He's like, we could trade down from this pick. We're open to that. They're really open-minded to things, and you see the reports. Oh, they're going to work out Shedeur on Friday, and then they're going here to work out Jalen Milroe Saturday, and then they're going Sunday to work out Tyler Shuck at Louisville. So they're like, okay, they're not expecting Cam Ward to be there at 3, obviously. With them looking at all these quarterbacks, they don't – maybe it's like Brian Dable likes quarterback X, and then the offensive coordinator like, no, I like this guy. Shane might like a different guy. So it seemed like a little bit unsure of what they're going to do at least at quarterback. So I went, nah, I don't think they're going to go at 3. We're 3 for 3. I did go Abdul Carter. I think he's my number 1 player in this draft. So if the Giants get it, Steve, I think this is an A+ pick for you guys. I like your points. It would be a really good defensive line. It really should be. Now, if they do go that way, I heard of rumors with Kayvon Thibodeaux being on the block. Does he get moved? We have to see what happens there if they do select Abdul Carter. But the talent's there. I mean, we went to school. We saw him play. He's a dog. He's everything you could want. I think I'll make a bold prediction right now. I think he'll be better than Micah Parsons in the league. I really do. I think he's a better player. Not to knock Micah in any way, but I think this guy's more – like Micah's like so vocal. He's like in the media making buzz. I think Abdul's just strictly like football, like let's go to work. And yeah, I would really like this pick for you guys. It makes a lot of sense. And then you have like a high second round pick, so you could trade back in if you really like a quarterback that's slipping. Maybe you could get a dart later but later in the first round, if you want to trade back in, or just take someone in the day 2, be a quarterback to develop. And one thing that I didn't pick a quarterback was Joe Shane said, look, we're comfortable with going with Russ. We're comfortable with Jameis. We like the quarterback situation right now. So I'm like, okay, if you really are comfortable, then that tells me you should pick the best player available, whether that's Hunter or Abdul Carter, whoever's there. So I think Abdul Carter is the pick, and he's my favorite player in the draft. So I think that would be a home run.
Yeah, I really think that would be the best pick for the Giants on the board. He's posting pictures on his story of LT when he visited the Giants facility the other day. Like, he wants to be that guy. And yeah, I think he's going to be a stud. And yeah, maybe he will be better than Micah Parsons. Time will tell. But yeah, let's transition over here to the Patriots at 4. So, this could be another, team that could pick a lot of players here. There's going to be a lot of players that are available. a lot of players that are positions of need on the board here. But for me, what I went for is protecting Drake May and his blind side, and I took the best tackle off the board here, Will Campbell out of LSU. I think they want to establish that offensive line, and the Patriots had one of the worst offensive lines in the league last year, and taking a guy like Will Campbell, a guy that could protect your blind side and try and reestablish that culture. I think that's a pick that Mike Vrabel and company wants. So that's my pick at 4. Not much I really need to talk about there, but that's how I went with it.
I'm in lockstep yet again. We're 4 for 4. I went with Will Campbell. Like you said, just they had the worst offensive line in football last year, so they need to get better there. You need to make sure Drake May stands up, right? You got Stephon Diggs this offseason. You made a lot of moves. You made a lot of moves, especially on that defense. You made moves there. So you got Stephon Diggs to work with. I feel like you need to get that offensive line going. Mike Vrabel, he was like an O lineman a little bit. Like he has good line experience. Like he played on the line for the NFL. So he knows the importance of getting the trenches going both sides of the ball. So Mason Graham could be a possibility there. I do like him a lot. He could go to the Patriots. I contemplated that a little bit, but I feel like you need to do everything you can, see what Drake May really got. He looked good. Let's see what he does in a full year with Mike Vrabel and that offense, right? Isn't McDaniels back as OC?
McDaniels is back.
So, yeah, we got to see what happens. So, yeah, I think Will Campbell makes sense, and he did as well. Like top 30 visits, he had one, and I think it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think it does. Best offensive tackle in the league, and you pair him up with a team that really needs one. So, next up, we got the Jags here. Now, this could go multiple ways as well, but I have them getting the best player on the board, in my opinion, that's left available, and that's Mason Graham. Like that guy's going to be special in this league, and he's one of the best, interior defensive linemen, that is coming out of this draft. And, he's been one of the best prospects, especially coming from Michigan. So I like the move there at 5. You're getting one of the best players available. And, can't complain there.
Dude, 5 for 5. I went Mason Graham. Similar thought process as you. Best player available. Help that defensive line. I like the pairing, the potential of Trayvon Walker alongside Mason Graham. Just get that defense going a little bit. I could understand, though, if you want to give Trevor Lawrence some help. So like a Tyler Warren. I know it might be a little high for a tight end, but I could see him going that way, getting him like a Ted McMillan or something like that. They could be a team that trades down. They could select one of those guys too. So they could go a number of different ways here. And their GM, like Gladstone or whatever, he comes from that Rams tree, Les Snead, and I was looking for him, and they don't believe in top 30 visits. So they're a team that, and as well as the Rams, they don't really visit. Bring in guys to their top 30 visits. So I couldn't really get a pinpoint of like who they're really trying to look at, like what position groups are they looking at to target. I couldn't find any of that. So it's kind of why I went best player available and took Mason Graham. And yeah, I believe his potential's through the roof as well. I think he's a top 3 guy. I think it goes Abdul Carter for me, Travis Hunter, then Mason Graham. So it's a good value pick at 5.
Awesome, yeah. So we're lockstep for the top 5. Who would have thought? I thought we might have had some different picks, but we pretty much went best player available for all 5.
Pretty much. I think we'll disagree here shortly. I think we'll have some different picks.
Maybe right here. Number 6, the Raiders.
Yeah.
Who do they go? They go Ashton Jeanty? They go Shedeur Sanders? In my opinion, I think they take Ashton Jeanty at 6. I like the move. Pete Carroll loves to run the ball. You got Geno Smith there, and that's his type of offense. Having a guy that could be a pocket passer and, rely heavy more on the run. And Ashton Jeanty, probably one of the best running back prospects since, Bijan, Saquon, and he's trying to be like Saquon, talking about how special he was with the Eagles this past season. He wants to be like that. I don't know if you saw his a letter that he put out there. Like Yeah, that
Yeah.
no one could tackle him, so draft me, whatever he said. I don't remember the exact words, but
Yeah.
he's trying to make a message to all the GMs out in there in the league, and I think Ashton Genty just makes the most sense, and I think it's a good fit for the Raiders and what Pete Carroll is trying to establish there and rebrand that Raiders culture. So that's my pick at 6.
Yeah. He said, I've taken the long way. I'm done with that way. If you pick me, it's simple. I'm coming to your franchise to do what Saquon and the Eagles just did. I'm coming to win big soon. It's tackle football. You know what I'm saying? I draft the guy that can't tackle. Thank you
Yeah.
for your time. Yeah. That's a dog right there. A lot of people go back to that Penn State playoff game and said he wasn't really a factor in that, but this man, he could do it all at the backfield. So we're 6 for 6. I went with Genty as well.
All right.
I did think receiver a little bit, but my theory was my line of thinking. Yeah, I've seen quarterback mock, but you paid Geno, you extended him, so at least you're gonna. I think with the quarterback draft class having that thought of like, oh, it's a weak quarterback class, so to speak. Not that I agree or disagree with that, but that's like the general consensus at least. So why would they waste a first round pick? Let's focus on getting guys in there. Yeah, Genty, probably the best player on the board at that pick. He has some potential to be generational, and I like his confidence. I like his swagger. He could do it. He could do it all. He could run between the tackles. He could pass catch a little bit. It'll help Geno Smith out. Yeah, it'd be crazy. I like Genty a lot. I mean, there's not much to say about him other than he's just a dog, and he might be offensive rookie of the year. To be honest with you.
Yeah, he definitely could be. But yeah, now I think might be the point where we have different opinions on who the next pick will be. But for
Yeah,
me,
we'll see.
for the Jets, there's a lot of good players on the board. Could they get Ted McMillan? They do need another receiver. Pair him up with Garrett Wilson now that Devontae Adams is gone. But for me, I don't think they get Ted McMillan. I think they get Tyler Warren out of Penn State here.
Hmm.
It just seems like a Jets pick. I don't know. The Jets, they got Olu last year, right? Get another Penn State alum and Tyler
Okay.
Warren. I like the pick. He's a safety blanket, and he could be that for Justin Fields. They really don't have a tight end on their roster. Tyler Conklin, he left. He's on the Chargers now.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy, he's a freak of nature. You saw what he did at Penn State. Best tight end prospect in this league. I think he will be a top 10 pick, and I have him going here at 7. He just changes the offense and makes it more dynamic. He's a playmaker, and he can block, he can catch, he could do it all. So the Jets need this type of talent on their offense side of the ball. They already have Garrett Wilson, so I don't really see the need for Ted McMillan. And you get, a good prospect in Tyler Warren, who's, probably one of the better, playmakers in this league with Ashton Genty and Ted McMillan. But I think for the Jets, it just makes the most sense there to draft him at 7.
Did we go 7 for 7? Yeah, I did. I will say Tyler Warren was in consideration. I did mull over that. They could use a quarterback. I'm not a believer in Justin Fields at this point. So I don't think he's their answer at franchise quarterback, and they're a team that just starving for a quarterback, for any franchise quarterback, honestly. They've been quarterback purgatory for how many years now. So they're looking for one. So I'm like, maybe Shador, like the surprise, he goes 7. I don't really see anyone mocking him there. But I'm like, I looked at the top 30 visits. I'm like, who did they hire as coach? Oh, Aaron Glenn. Okay. Maybe they go defense. And that's where I went. I went defense. I went to the Georgia tree. I went with Mike Williams. That was my pick. He had a top 30 visit there. It's kind of like the Dallas Turner pick. I feel like oh, Jets might go offense, but they flip it, they go defense. So I feel like, yeah, get Aaron Glenn, a guy that he likes on defense. Let's get that defensive line going a little bit. Let's get some help on the edge. Hassan Reddick wasn't the answer there. So you're obviously kind of trying to look for some edge production from there. So why not get a guy with a lot of upside, a lot of talent that could use some polishing as well? So I went with Mike Williams at 7.
Yeah, I don't knock the pick there. That makes sense. The Aaron Glenn connection, defensive side of the ball. They need to get that defense back to where it was a few years ago. So yeah, they definitely need to get an edge rusher because yeah, their edge rushers has not lived up to the expectations at all
Mhm.
whatsoever. So that does make sense. Now we're moving on to the Panthers. I was thinking of making a trade here at this pick, but I didn't, and I still
Okay.
bet. But for me, what I liked for the Panthers to do the best, in my opinion, is draft someone that's a position of need and also probably one of the best corners in this draft. And I have Will Johnson from Michigan going here at 8. I think they definitely need some corners, and especially being in that division with Mike Evans, Drake London, and all those top receivers in that division. They need a guy that, was early on expected to go potentially, top 5, and he kind of slipped in a lot of mock drafts recently. But I think it just makes the most sense at pick 8 to go Will Johnson. To me, he's the best cornerback prospect in this league. I know he's been dealing with injuries, but so I have him going there at 8 to the Panthers. That's where I winded up picking. But what do you think?
Nice. I feel like it's at least obvious a little bit. So I liked the way you went defense. I think that's where they should go. I think statistically they were the worst defense last year, so they need to get better there. I liked what Dave Canales and them did offensively. I saw wide receivers need. I'm like, I don't think they need a receiver yet. I think they'll be okay there. So for first round, like they need talent on the defense. So I thought Will Johnson was a good pick. I do think the injury he might fall a little bit because of that, but he is a top 10 talent. So if they pick him at 8, that's a good pick. I feel like if you think he could stay healthy, that's great. I just trying to get in the minds of the team a little bit. I don't know if that's the case. So I did a little run on the Georgia defensive line. I went with Michael Williams' teammate. I went with Jalen Walker.
Okay.
I went there. I'm like, I'm a big believer in the trenches. I will keep saying that. So like, let's get the trenches better. Jalen Walker, he's a dog. The Georgia D linemen have been pretty good in the NFL. So you have that track record of success with Kirby Smart. They produce defensive players, especially D line. So I had that in mind, and I'm like, they need to generate more pressure on the quarterback, move him off the spot, and I think that's why I went with Jalen Walker over like a corner. I just feel like getting pressure on the quarterback's vital. So I went with Jalen Walker. It's more of like a needy position. I feel like it's more valuable than a corner. That's my humble opinion, though. Or they could argue maybe Will Johnson's more talented. He might be, but I just feel like the position of having a D line is more valuable. So I went with Jalen Walker at 8.
Yeah. I don't knock that pick at all. That is definitely a position of need. And, hopefully they could be that Jalen Walker could be like a Brian Burns because they haven't had, a pass rush
Right.
since Brian Burns and they want to reestablish that. So Jalen Walker there at 8, that does make sense.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, now transitioning to the Saints at 9, this is another team that, needs a lot of positions. But Shador, could he fall to 9? I don't see the Saints picking Shador. I haven't really heard any talks of them falling in love with Shador, and they have a lot of other positions of need. And I went Jalen Walker here at 9. I think they need
Okay.
to pair up another edge rusher with what's his name? I can't think of his name right now. What's his name?
Cam Jordan.
Cam Jordan.
Yeah.
Cam Jordan. He's about to retire here soon.
Mhm.
He's getting up there in age, so this guy will take over eventually for him. And I think, yeah, he's going to be a stud, a position of need for sure. I know they still have Chase Young, but I don't see him, lasting there much longer as well. He's just a veteran guy at this point that he might have some production, but he's not special like we thought he was going to be at pick number 2. So again, a guy like Jalen Walker in this team will, I think, be beneficial for the Saints because they need to get after the quarterback, and that's something they haven't been able to do there recently. So I like the pick there at 9 for Jalen Walker.
Yeah. I can't knock the pick. Good logic there. I really do like that for him. I think that's a good value pick for him if Jalen Walker's there at 9. Yeah, I'm gonna stop the Shador Sanders saga. Where is he gonna go? This is where he's going. He's going number 9 to the Saints.
Okay.
The Derek Carr injury kind of solidified that for me. And if you listen to like Adam Schefter and like Rappaport, they said the quarterback situation has been a little bit dicey. They never Derek Carr and the Saints maybe weren't on the same page, so we're looking at a quarterback. You bring Kellen Moore, maybe he would like to get a guy in there. So. I feel like it's pressing now to find your quarterback, and I think Shador, there's question about his arm talent, but being in a dome will help that, and he is a pinpoint accurate quarterback as well. I think they do go quarterback. I do like the fit. Kamara, Olave with Kellen Moore. We saw like he could work with any quarterback. They could have a good offense. I think let's move forward with the new regime, Kellen Moore. Let's get your quarterback. Let's move for the future, and they're going to move off of Derek Carr at some point. So I went with Shador Sanders at 9. I don't think he falls much further realistically than that. So I went with Shador at 9.
Yeah, I don't knock the pick. They definitely do need a quarterback, but I don't know. I feel like there's teams out there, what I've heard recently, that Shador could definitely slip in this draft. So you'll see where I have him going
Okay.
eventually. But right now, yeah, Shador at 9. That does make sense for the Saints' perspective with the Derek Carr injury there. So I don't knock that pick at all.
Yeah.
Pick 10, the Bears. So I have them going offensive tackle here, shoring up that offensive line yet again. They've been doing it so far this offseason. They got Jonah Jackson, I believe, from the Rams. They
Mhm.
got Joe Tooney as well. Where is he at? Armand Membu. I heard this guy
Yeah.
potentially could go above Will Campbell. I've heard that from a lot of mock drafts. But I think they need an offensive tackle. They want to protect Caleb Williams because last year was something that Caleb Williams cannot go through again in his career. And if they want to be a contender and live up to the hype and contend in that division, you got to protect your quarterback. And Ryan Poles, he's been doing that this whole offseason. And this guy is supposedly going to be a stud. So I think this just shores up the offensive line yet again, and they want to make sure Caleb Williams stays upright. So I have Membu going at pick 10.
Yeah, you can't knock the pick. You always use help on the O line or D line. So anytime you pick that, not the sexy pick, but it's a valuable pick. It's a smart pick. Yeah. So my thought to it was they did spend a little bit on the offensive line. So I'm like, maybe they're content for now, at least to in the first round. Maybe they can move off of it, and then maybe they could go more on the interior line later on in the draft to maybe help Caleb Williams that way. So I'm like, I'm gonna knock it off here. Tyler Warren's not gonna fall past 10. So I'm taking Tyler Warren at 10. I kind of fell in love with this pick. Their new head coach, Ben Johnson. Can you imagine him, Cole Kmet, DJ Moore, in that offense? That would be crazy passing attack. That helped Caleb Williams a lot. They invested in that offensive line a little bit too. Running back, you could argue is a need. So I've seen a lot of Bears fans dreaming of Ashton Jeanty being there at 10. I don't think he'll be there at 10. And I think it's a little bit too high for Omarion Hampton, who you'll see. I'll have his name come up later. He will go in the first round, in my opinion. But yeah, I feel like Tyler Warren, if he's there at 10, just like him and Komet could be a dynamic tight end duo, help Caleb Williams out. And this is going to be a big year for him. So why not give him all the help he needs offensively? So I think it's a home run pick if Tyler Warren's there at 10.
Yeah, I do love that pick. He could be the Sam Laporta of the Bears offense.
That's exactly what I thought. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that would be a great pick. But yeah, I had him going earlier, just 3 picks earlier.
Yeah, he could.
That's
He
at
definitely
7.
could be. Yeah.
Could happen. But yeah, if he falls there, that is a great matchup to have for the Bears and that offense. And yeah, I like that pick a lot. But next up, we have the 49ers. So they could go a multitude of ways as well. I have them going the best player on the board right here and getting Tet McMillan. I think losing Debo might hurt their offense. And Tet McMillan, there's GMs out there saying that he's better than Travis Hunter at receiver. And I think he'll be a sure thing in that Shanahan offense. Ayuk's coming back from a torn ACL, so they really don't have any decent receivers. I know they have Ricky Pearsall, and he had a decent rookie campaign after missing a few games there in the beginning. But I think they go out and get another sure receiver because Ayuk could potentially be on the trade block. I've heard that as well. So get another sure thing a receiver, Ted McMillan, and maybe Ayuk is no longer on the team here shortly, but I know they just paid him that contract. But they want to make sure they have a healthy receiver room, and getting Ted McMillan out of Arizona, I think he's going to be one of the better receiver prospects in this draft, and I think he'll do well in that offense. So that's why I have him going there at 11.
Yeah, not a bad pick at all. Yeah, he probably is one of the better players on the board at that, according to how you have the draft going, and probably for mine too. But going to mine, I feel like that defensive side of the ball really got hit hard, so they're going to probably look for some youth there, replenish it with some talent. And I went with Walter Nolan. I went with some D-line help. They lost Javon Hargrave. He's no longer there. Drake Greenlaw is no longer there. I know he's more of he was a linebacker, but I feel like that side of the ball, they needed someone to help rush with Nick Bosa, in my opinion. And Walter Nolan, he's got all the tools. He could be a very solid NFL player. I feel like it's a pretty good pick for him, pretty decent value. I know he's been a little bit lower, but he has a top 30 visit. So I feel like this could be someone they're comfortable with picking there. So they need D-line help. I just thought it makes sense. Top 30 visit, D-line. They need to work on that defense. They lost a lot of players. Hufanga was another guy they lost on the defense. So they need help there. So I went with Walter Nolan to give him some help and some youth.
Yeah, good pick there. Can't knock that one at all. They definitely do need to replenish that defensive line. And I think, that could be a solid pick. But next up, we got Dallas Cowboys. I had a Dallas Cowboys pick here. That's how I felt. I just picked someone that the Cowboys would pick here. So I feel like they need another receiver on this offensive side of the ball.
Yeah.
Where's he at? Matthew Golden out of Texas. I have going here at 12. Just a Cowboys pick, Coming from Texas, they need another offensive weapon, pair up with CeeDee Lamb. Brandon Cooks, no longer there. So, and they need another playmaker for Dak in this offense. They wanted Ashton Jeanty there at 12. He went early, went 6 to the Raiders. There's other picks that could happen here, but for a Cowboys pick and how Jerry Jones likes to, draft in the first round, that just made the most sense from my perspective. So Matthew Golden, receiver there at 12. That's how I think it's going to go.
Yeah. Honestly, I went with the same logic as you, but I went with Ted McMillan. He's right there for him. Take him. I think that's a pretty good pick. CeeDee Lamb needs some help. Dak Prescott, you paid him all that money. You need to give him some talent over there to throw it. So, yeah, I went with Ted McMillan, Steve. I picked him. He had a top 30 visit with them, as well as Matthew Golden, so I could see him going that way too. I did see a clip of him talking about meeting Jerry Jones and how surreal that was from the Matthew Golden side of things. Ted McMillan was one of them too that went in there, and I feel like he might be the best receiver in the draft, so I went with him there. It'll be a need. It'll be a good pick for him. They do have a lot of holes, so this is very critical for them. They do need to ace this draft. All the rounds, all the picks, you need to hit home runs with. So I think logically you need to get Dak some help if you pay him all that money, and CeeDee Lamb can't be the only guy you fear. Get Ted McMillan and help get Dak another playmaker. I did think Omari Hampton, maybe. I did see him mocked. They could have a running back, but they did bring in Javonte Williams. They have Miles Sanders there now, and a lot of the guys they did bring in for top 30s that I saw or like the Quinshon Judkins that could maybe snag a little bit later in the draft. So maybe day 2, high day 3, they'll get a running back in there for sure, no doubt about it. But I went with Ted McMillan. I think he'll be higher than like Omari Hampton on the board. So I went with Ted McMillan.
Yeah, I like that pick. If he falls there to 12, they better pick him. But yeah, in my draft, he did not fall, and the Niners took him right before. So that's why they went with the next best receiver, Matthew Golden, in my opinion. Next
Yeah.
up for the Dolphins at 13, there could be a plethora of picks here. I have Jahad Campbell going here to the
Okay.
Dolphins. I think it just makes sense because they've been dealing with a lot of injuries, and I think he's going to be a stud from Alabama. And yeah, the Dolphins, they have a lot of holes, but they need to shore up the edge rushers. Bradley Chubb just hasn't been the greatest. Jalen Phillips has been dealing with injuries back-to-back years, so you're getting a stud from Alabama and Jahad Campbell. So I think that is going to be a great pick for them at 13.
Yeah, I can't knock the pick. I love my Alabama guys too, as well as my Penn State guys, so that would be a good pick. Um, yeah, I'm taking a guy you already took earlier. I was just thinking Tua and his health. They lost Teron Armstead, so I went with offensive tackle. I feel like keeping Tua healthy on the field is important. So this is where I have Ahmad Membu going here to the Dolphins, and I think it makes a lot of sense. Just losing Teron Armstead, who has been a top 5 tackle in this league forever. He's retired now, and you have questions with Tua's health. You need to keep him on the field, so you need to get a guy who he nailed the combine. He was a freak. He was a freak athlete. He was a freakazoid out there. So yeah, and like you said earlier, that he could be the first tackle taken, but obviously we had Will Campbell going a lot higher. So yeah, I'm going to start taking more tackles here, but to get this little tackle run, I'm going to go on started. I got Membu going to the Dolphins at 13, and I think it makes sense.
Oh yeah, that's a great pick. If he's still available, they better pick him at 13.
Yeah.
But yeah, now this is the part of the draft where like I don't know these prospects that much, but I just went off of
Yeah.
like positions of need. So next up,
Mhm.
pick 14 for the Colts. I had them taking a corner here, and
Okay.
the best prospect on the board for corner wise, Jahade Barron out of Texas.
Jade Barron. Okay.
Yeah, I think they definitely need a corner, and that's been a position of need for a while for them. So I think it makes the most sense. There's other players they could definitely take, but I like that for the Colts right there. They need to shore up that defense because they're dealing with a lot of receivers in that division. Nico Collins, to name a few. But other than that, I think that's who they go with at 14.
Yeah, I think that's a good pick for him. It makes sense too. Not a bad pick at all. Um, yeah. So as I alluded to earlier with the Membu pick, I said there's going to be. I'm going to take another offensive tackle. So with the Colts situation, if you look at it, their offensive tackles next year they're going to be free agents. So I would imagine they're not going to be able to keep both of them. So I went with Josh Simmons, offensive tackle for Ohio State. I took him. He was a stud. He did get injured, I believe, in the Oregon game. He came from that elite Ohio State offensive line. They were so good. I have another offensive lineman from Ohio State getting picked a little bit later. They're just elite offensive line. So I went with Josh Simmons. He fills that tackle need. He plays that at a high level. He was very good. He protected the blind side really well. He was their left tackle, and he's an admirable. He's an admirable dude, man. He's an admirable player. Yeah, I think it would be a smart pick. Getting that offensive line set when one or both of those tackles go. You need to have a plan there. So I went with the best tackle on the board.
Yeah, that's something they do need for sure. But I have them going later in the first round, but they
Okay.
get them there at 14. Yeah, that's a great pick. So for me, now we're going to the Falcons here. They could use a lot of positions. I felt like they needed to shore up the offensive line here. I didn't have them going offensive tackle. I had them going interior offensive line here,
Okay.
and I had them getting where's he at? Okay, maybe he's all right. We're just gonna look him up here. I
He's a
have
day three. He's a
Tyler,
day three guy.
I have
No.
Tyler Booker going here
Okay.
from Alabama.
I see. I see. Okay.
I think he's gonna be a stud. Because yeah, last year with the Falcons, their offensive line was one of the worst in the league. But I think they need more offensive guards, like interior offensive linemen, more
Yeah.
than tackles, from what I've been reading. So I went Tyler Booker there, Alabama. Yeah, he could go in the second round potentially, but they want to shore up that offensive line and that interior. And yeah, they don't want Michael Penix and Kirk Cousins, if he plays, to be, pressured all the time. So Tyler Booker, for me, made the most sense at 15.
Yeah, me and the Falcons got a little bit of beef going on. I wanted them to take Dallas Turner last year, the edge rusher, and they went with Michael Penix, and it ruined my perfect 7 of 7. I was perfect. It was beautiful, and then they ruined it. They had to fuck it up.
Yeah.
So I'm like, if you don't take a damn edge rusher this year, I'll be pissed. So I went with Shamar Stewart, the edge rusher from Texas A&M. Now, if you look at his numbers, they're not going to jump off the board. You're going to be like, oh, they're really underwhelming. So why is he going to be in the first round? Well, I think he's going to be a first-round pick because he's a freak athlete. He can run. So, like, with these quarterbacks nowadays, they're more athletic. And I'm thinking NFC South got Baker Mayfield. He could run a little bit. Not known for running. He could run a little bit. Same with Bryce Young. And in this mock draft, that's Shedeur Sanders. He can escape a little bit. So I figure, like, they need some talent there. They need some edge rushers. Get Young on that defensive line and have people run down these quarterbacks, man. And especially in the NFC, and they even talk about Jayden Daniels and Jalen Hurts that can run too. So you need to be able to track down quarterbacks in today's NFL. And he's a freak athlete. And, I'm hoping Raheem Morris, they could work on his technique. They could work on winning more pass rush reps. So again, refining his technique there. But and also they need an edge rusher. So I'm going with some youth talent there. I went with Shamar Stewart.
Yeah, let's see where I have him. I think I have him going in the first round. Yeah, it's just a little bit later, so he could go there early. But I have him going, I think, past the top 20. So we'll see where he lands here shortly. But yeah, can't knock the pick. I think he can be a stud. So next up, the Cardinals here. So who do I have going? I have a guy that you already selected, Walter Nolan out of Mississippi.
I like that pick.
Ole Miss. I think it's a guy that will fit the Jonathan Gannon defense, and I think he will be a stud. Where'd you have him going?
Walter Nolan, I had him going the Niners at 11.
And 11. Yeah, so there's a few picks later for my mock draft. But yeah, I think the Cardinals, you can't have more interior defensive linemen, and I think that's a guy that they can get at 16. And Jonathan Gannon loves interior defensive linemen, especially with days with the Eagles. So getting him there at 16, I think will be a good pick. And yeah, he could be a top 10 prospect. I don't know, but right there, he's not a bad pick at 16 for my opinion. But I'll transition it over to you.
I like it. And it's funny because you mentioned about, it's a little bit of a gap between when you picked them and where I picked them. Well, here's a bigger gap, I think. This is where I had Will Johnson going. Yeah. Remember him?
Yeah.
Mentioned probably 20 minutes ago. He's talented, and like you were saying, like Jonathan Gannon, right? His defense, he does like D-line. I don't disagree. No, he understands the importance there. So I love the Walter Nolan pick if it falls out how you have it. So I think that would make a lot of sense. But the talent there is from Will Johnson's there. Jonathan Gannon has that background. He was a secondary coach for the Colts before he got the DC job and for the Eagles. So he does like his secondary guys a lot too. And not Travis Hunter. Travis Hunter's regarded as the best. Then this guy's probably number 2. Will Johnson, the injury concern, it might resonate with some teams, but he's too talented not to go round 1. And Cardinals, they have a quarterback need. They're looking for the next Patrick Peterson. He retired as a Cardinal a few days ago. So they're like, man, for you, Patrick Peterson, we're going to draft your heir apparent. And they go with Will Johnson.
Yeah, well, if he falls all the way to 16, I totally forgot he was still on your board. That would be an A+ pick there. I mean, A+ pick. But yeah, I think he goes sooner. I think he goes to the Panthers there at 8. But yeah, that would be a A+ pick if he falls to 16 for the Cardinals. I do have another player in the secondary going off the board here at 17. And his name, what's his name? I wrote it down here. Malachi Starks, safety for the Bengals, right there.
Okay.
I think he goes there. Coming out of Georgia, they need to shore up that secondary. They just haven't had a good safety since Jesse Bates. So, shoring up that
Mhm.
secondary there will definitely help this Bengals team because that was one of their weaknesses last year, their secondary, and they just couldn't beat good teams like the Ravens and the Steelers and that whole division there. So, I think right there at 17, you get a guy coming from Georgia, going to shore up that defensive secondary there. So I think that's a good pick for the Bengals at 17.
Yeah, super talented guy there. I could definitely see that happening, coming to fruition. I'm gonna take a guy that you had coming off a few picks earlier. Not too bad as the Will Johnson discrepancy there, but Jahad Campbell, I got him, the linebacker from Alabama, coming off the board here. Yeah, super talented guy. Can track anyone down. Can really good tackler. Smart, high IQ guy as well. And he just needs talented people around the defense. So get a guy that could plug in the middle of the defense and fly around the field and make tackles. I thought that just made a lot of sense to me as well. So I went with Jahad Campbell.
Yeah, they might need a new edge rusher because Hendrickson might be on his way out. So, yeah, I do like that pick there. Now, 18, I think the Seahawks, they want to protect Darnold. So I have an offensive lineman going here off the board. Let's see if I can find him. He's an offensive tackle. And where's he at? Kelvin Banks Jr. I have him going before, what's his name? Josh Simmons. I think
Okay.
he will be a better prospect, in my opinion, from what I've been reading. And, you could plug and play him at left tackle or right tackle. So I think the pick there at 18, they want to rebuild that offensive line because that was a weakness they had there last year. And, yeah, protect Darnold's blind side if he plays left tackle or right tackle. Because I know they drafted a tackle, forget his name, in the Evan Neal draft, but he hasn't been living up to the hype. So they get another guy, Kelvin Banks, that can work in that offensive line room there. So I like that pick there.
Yeah, I would never knock an O-line pick, so I think that's a good pick. Seahawks, I go with a lot of connections, like Mike McDonald, excuse me, being a defensive-minded guy, having a lot of. They did spend a lot, so we got Darnold in there, you got Kupp in there, so I'm like, oh, maybe they'll go defense. So I just went with a guy that had a sensational combine and is flying up the draft boards. This is where I have Nick Emmanwori going. Have him going to the Seahawks. You already got. I know you got Devin Witherspoon back there. You got some talent. You got Tariq Woolen, but I feel like you get this guy. I don't know where he is. Oh, there he is.
Rank 67 according to PFF.
Oh man. No, I've been seeing him from my first round. He had a great combine, so I do think he will go in the first round. And I think Seahawks will get a little bit more talent on the defense. They like being ball hawks back there. I just think about the Legion of Boom days. So let's get a safety in there. Let's wreak some havoc. So I went with Nicky Memori.
I like the pick. I have him going in the first round, but just not that early. So you'll see where he ends up here shortly. But
Okay.
yeah, I don't knock the pick. They do need another safety in there, so I like it a lot. For me, now with the Bucks, so I think they need an edge rusher, and the guy I have going here is James Pierce Jr. I don't
Okay.
know. I don't know much about him, but I know he's one of the best
He's
edge
talented. He's good.
rushers left on the board. And yeah, I think they haven't really had an edge rush this good since probably like Shaq Barrett. I know they had him last year. They brought him back on a 1-year deal coming out of retirement, but they need to bring some guys back in there. I know they have, I can't remember his name, number 9 on the Bucks. He's been solid.
Oh, Schwenka, Tryon.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
been solid for them.
They have
But
Vita Vea.
they have
in the
Vita
middle.
Vea, but they do
Yeah.
need another edge rusher. I think James Pierce Jr. out of Tennessee,
Okay.
one of the best edge rushers left on the board here. 19 is a good pick, so that's where I have the Bucks going.
Yeah, they also, I don't know if he said it, but Hassan Reddick, he's now a Tampa Bay Buccaneer too. So they have him on the edge.
I forgot about that.
They got him for a 1-year deal. So yeah, that's a good pick. I do have James Pierce going a little bit later in my mock draft, but yeah, he was talented. He was productive at Tennessee. I'll talk about him later though. But 19, I went with a defensive back. I went with the best player on the board. I went with Jahdae Barron. I have him going to Tampa Bay to shore up that back end. I think adding Hassan Reddick, I think they'll be all right with the D line this year. And they like Todd Bowles likes to blitz anyway, so you need your back end strong. So I went with getting the best corner available in Jahdae Barron. So I think it's a good pick there.
Yeah, I like that pick. Forget where I had him going. I had him to the Colts. So yeah, a few picks before.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a good pick there because they definitely do need another corner. And now this is where I have another running back going off the board here. I have Hampton from North Carolina. If I could find him. Yeah, I think, Sean Payton, they lost Javonte Williams, and they had that other guy that was a rookie last year that was in there for spurts, and he had some special plays in fantasy and scored some touchdowns as a waiver wire pickup. I forget his name, but they need another running back here, and they need a number one guy. I think Marion Hampton out of North Carolina will, complement Bo Nix and that offense very well. So I think you get him off the board here. It just makes too much sense.
Yeah, it really makes too much sense if I agree with you. So yes, I have Omarion Hampton going off the board at 20. And to just piggyback off what you said, Sean Payton did say it's a really, really good running back class coming out this year. So they're going to take a running back. And Omari Hampton, you could argue, I've been seeing him going to the Cowboys at 12. So I think at 20, that's a very valuable pick if they stay there and he's available. I'll pick him. And like you said, you lost some running backs, and Sean Payton did do a lot of platoon. You had like Jaleel McLaughlin. You had all these guys like coming in and running. They used like 3 running backs. No one really got the lion's share, but here you go. You get Omarion Hampton. You need your Alvin Kamara. You get him. He could do a little bit of everything. So I think it makes a lot of sense there. And it'll help Bo Nix out too and open up things in the passing game. So, yeah, I like the pick a lot.
Yeah. All right. It's time. Shedeur Sanders is getting drafted.
Okay.
I have him going to the Steelers. They're tired of waiting for Aaron Rodgers. Pretty sure he had dinner with Mike Tomlin and company a week or so ago. And I think he fits perfect with that Steelers culture. Right now, all they have is Mason Rudolph. So they need to shore up this quarterback room. And getting him there at 21 is a steal. You had him going in the top 10. You had him going there to 9 to the Saints. If he falls all the way here, that's a great pickup for the Steelers. The Steelers might even move up if he slips that far just to secure him.
Yeah.
But I don't know if they even need to because all the quarterbacks or all the teams before him don't even need a quarterback. So if Shedeur falls at 21 to Steelers, I think that's a great pick for him because they definitely need a quarterback. He's the second best prospect in this draft. He could go in the top 5, could go to the Browns or Giants potentially, or he could go to the Saints there. So if he falls all the way to 21, they're going to turn in the card to Roger Goodell and draft him. So, yeah, I think he will be solid for the Steelers, and I think he'll fit right in perfectly with that Steelers culture. So I have him there at 21.
Yeah, if he's there, take him. That's a good pick there. Went with the quarterback as well. I went with Jackson Dart. The Steelers just need to do something there. You can't wait around for Aaron Rodgers, even if he does decide to come for you. You can't bank and put all your chips in that basket. You gotta get someone that you like. And I think Jackson Dart, he's one of my favorite quarterback prospects. I think he has all the tools. I think he could develop into something there. Now you might have to play him. You might have to play him right away. Depends on how this all shakes up. Or I guess you could have Mason Rudolph start a little bit. Depends. You'll have a little quarterback competition there, but I think he has all the ability to be a good NFL quarterback. So I like him there. Yeah, I just went with Jackson Dart. They just need a quarterback, man, too. So
Yeah.
they could, if Omarion Hampton's there, they could maybe because they lost Najee. So I could see them. They do need to take a running back too. So if he's there, maybe, but they'll take a running back at some point as well. So, but they need to address that quarterback situation quick.
Yeah, I think they go quarterback there no matter what happens because they don't have anyone. All they have is Mason Rudolph. So you definitely need a quarterback on your roster, either Shedeur or Jackson Dart. One of them's there. You got to take them. So now next up, I have another tight end going off the board here, Colston Loveland. I think he's the second best tight end prospect. You know, the connection there, Michigan, Harbaugh, I think it makes sense. All they have at tight end is Will Disley. So I think you got to get a guy in there to make your offense better. They need more playmakers. Last year, they didn't really have much on receiving wise other than Quentin Johnson. So getting a tight end from Michigan, the connection there with Harbaugh just made too much sense. So that's why I'm going there at 22.
Dude, lockstep yet again. I'm just going to keep it short and sweet. I have Colson Loveland there and everything you said. I just think the connection there and Justin Herbert needs some help. And you get a super talented guy. You can line him up outside, inside. He's very flexible. Like you can line him up anywhere on the line and he could win. He could beat smaller guys. He could beat the linebackers and safety. So he can create matchups that are favorable and helps out the offense a lot.
Yeah, perfect. We're lockstep yet again.
Probably we won't be for long.
We won't be for long. So, yeah, this one we won't be.
Yeah, for sure.
Because I already have a guy that you already took, Shamar Stewart, going here.
Oh, okay. I have a guy you already took, too.
Oh, I love it. I think Shamar Stewart, they need another edge rusher. Pair him up with Rashawn Gary. They lost Preston Smith. They traded him this past year to the Steelers. He's a free agent now, right, pretty sure. Yeah. So you got to show up the edge rushers there. You had him going earlier, and I think he falls here.
Yeah, they do like taking their defensive guys in the first round, so that's for sure. And if he's there, I can see that happening. I went with an offensive guy. This is where I have Matthew Golden going off the board. Yeah, the wide receiver from the Longhorns. I mean, you watched them last year. You're like, man, their receivers just can't really win except Jaden Reed. They need a lot of help. You need to get Jordan Love some weapons there, and Matthew Golden's there for you. He did have a top 30 visit there, and if he's there at 23, you need to get some playmakers. You need to get some guys that can win. So I went with Matthew Golden.
Yeah, I like it, and yeah, I'm going to Dallas at 12. So
yeah,
I know. I thought it was a Jerry Jones pick, so that's why I wanted to do it, make it funny. But
no, I could definitely see him going 12.
Yeah. So yeah, like that pick there. 24. I have a defensive tackle going off the board here. Derek Harmon.
Okay.
I think the Vikings, pair him up with Jonathan Allen, who they just acquired this past offseason. Shore up that defensive line. Brian Flores loves him some defensive linemen, and getting one of the better guys off the board here at 24 makes the most sense. So that's why I got Harmon going there.
Yeah, not a bad pick. I do have him first round. He'll be up in a few picks. I went with the opposite side of the trenches. I went with offensive line for the Vikings. I went with Donovan Jackson. I did say I would have another Ohio State guy going off the board on that O-line. So I went with Donovan Jackson. There he is. Yeah, he did play some tackle. So when Josh Simmons went down with the injury, he slid out and he did an admirable job filling in at tackle, even though he was more of an interior guy. So he gives him flexibility there. I know you're pretty good at tackles, but I'm like, give JJ McCarthy. So he has the weapons already. He signed Aaron Jones, so you're good there. So we'll just get, and you got Jonathan Allen, and I believe you got Javon Hargrave. So you're good. You're pretty good. You're pretty solid. Just get some more talent on the offensive line. So I went with Donovan Jackson from that stout Ohio State offensive line. You could plug him in at guard. You could plug him in at tackle. You could plug him anywhere. So I think gives him a lot of flexibility, and it's a good pick for him.
Yeah, I like that pick. Now, I think the Texans here, they need a receiver. I don't know if this guy's played with C.J. Stroud at Ohio State, but Ohio State connection. I have them going Emeka Egbuka, if that's how you say his name.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have him going there at 25 because Tank Dell, he's not going to be playing. Start of the season, they lost Stephon Diggs. You need another receiver on that offensive side of the ball to pair up with Nico Collins. And, I think he'll fit right in. C.J. Stroud likes some Ohio State receivers, so can't knock the pick there if they get him at 25. So that's why I have them picking him.
Yeah, the thing with them was they lost Laramie Tunsil. They lost in that Eagles trade. They also lost Kenyon Green. So I'm like, they need to go online. So yeah, I'm going a little bit higher. This is where I have Kelvin Banks Jr. coming off the board. Just being in state, that can and that connection there. Offensive line's a big need, and you got a guy that could come in. He's going to be your starting tackle. There's going to be some growing pains there. There's going to be some learning curve, but he has the size, he has the framing, he has the body to be a good offensive lineman in this league. So I think it has to be the smart pick. Yes, you have to go that way, in my opinion.
Yeah, if he's still there, they should take him. But in my draft, he's not. So from that being said, let's move on to the Rams. I think the Rams need to get another corner on this team, and they get Mr. Trey Amos from Ole Miss.
Okay.
I think they need to be able to stop these number one receivers in this league, and I think that's a position of need for them. So getting Trey Amos there, 26, I think Sean McVay likes this guy, and they're going to get him there at 26.
We went with same position, different player. I went with Maxwell Hairston from Kentucky. Similar reason, you need to be able to have some help back there to against elite receivers in the NFC. So you need to bring in some talent there, cover up the back end, and I think Maxwell Hairston could be that guy for him.
Yeah, I like that. Now the Ravens, I have them going offensive lineman here, and I got Donovan Jackson going here to the Ravens. You said you already took him, right?
Yeah, I took him with the Vikings. Yep.
Yeah, so if he falls there to the Ravens, it makes sense. Maybe he goes sooner to the Texans. You never know. But in my draft, he falls to the Ravens. They need an offensive tackle. So I have him going there at 27.
Yeah. And just a couple picks in your mock draft, a little bit apart from this guy. I went with Derek Harmon. I went with another guy they need on that they could use on the defensive line a little bit. They're a little bit older up there. Kyle Van Noy was like one of their most productive, so I feel like they need to get some young talent in there. And I went with Derek Harmon.
I like it. Next up, we got the Lions on the board. I have them getting an edge rusher. I don't know how to say his last name, but Donovan Ezeraku.
Ezeraku, yeah.
Ezeraku. See, I can speak. Out of Boston College. I have him going there, pairing him up with Aiden Hutchinson. I think he's a guy that's going to go in the first round. I think he falls here. So that's who I have the Lions picking.
Yeah, I like the pick. Let's see. Lions. I went with why can't I speak today? Dan Campbell pick, a Brad Holmes pick, just like a dog. I went with Gray Sable, the offensive lineman from North Dakota. Yeah, Carson Wentz University over there. But yeah, I think it's right around the range where he might go. He's like a late first round guy. Just help their offensive line, help their trenches, give Jared Goff some protection up there. I think it's a good pick, and I think it's just a Lions pick. Getting like these underdog, rugged guys from like smaller schools or someone that you don't have a first round grade on. I think it's a Detroit Lions pick.
Yeah, I like that pick. So next up for the Commanders, I have a guy that was already taken, a guy that popped off in the combine, Nick Amani Wari, if that's how you say his name.
I have him Wari, yeah.
Yeah, I have him going here. I think the Commanders, they need to shore up that secondary with A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Malik Neighbors in the division. So, get this guy here. I think will be a stud. And, yeah, this is a perfect fit, I think, with the Commanders here.
Yeah, I'm going with another guy you already said, too. I feel like that's just where we're at in this point. I went with James Pierce Jr. Just why not? He's sitting right there. It'd be a good value pick for him. He was super productive in the SEC. I think it's a great pick if he's there for the Commanders and get someone on the D line, right? You lost Jonathan Allen, so let's get someone younger that could rush off the edge.
Yeah, that if he goes there, that's a good pick for them. If he falls that far, I don't know. We'll see. Bills. I have them getting a corner. I know they just brought in Tre'Davious White, a little reunion tour there, but I have them getting Isaiah Thomas out of Florida State. I think he's projected to be late first rounder, early second rounder. I think they like him there, so that's why that's the pick, and they definitely need to shore up that secondary. That was a position of need last year, so got to make that happen, and they'll get him there at 30.
Yeah, they have they brought Tre'Davious White back too. I just saw that the other day.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went with a fun pick here. I went with Emeka Buka, the wide receiver. You took him a little bit earlier. I'm like, why not? Let's give Josh Allen another weapon to throw to. You have Khalil Shakir, who's good. I'm like, just get another guy. But just get another receiver. And Ohio State's produced a lot of good receivers. I'm like, let's just have fun with it. Let's get Josh Allen to the Super Bowl. Let's get him a dynamic guy, dynamic receiver. So I went with Emeka Buka.
Yeah, I like that pick. Especially they need another receiver. And maybe he could be a playmaker for him.
Sure.
But now the Chiefs, after losing the Super Bowl, they need to draft an offensive lineman here. I have Josh Simmons from Ohio State.
That would be a steal.
Going off the board here. Yeah, he kind of slipped
That's
in
a
my
steal.
draft.
Yeah.
So if he falls there to 31, that's a good pick. Yeah, they need an offensive tackle. Joe Tooney is no longer on the team, and he was mainly a guard, but he's gone now, and he played tackle for them in the Super Bowl. So you get a guy that could play left tackle for you in Josh Simmons, and you still got Jawan Taylor there, the guy that always does some false starts. So they need a fixed offensive line, and I think this is a guy that maybe can help them beating the Eagles if they meet again. So Josh Simmons,
the trilogy.
The trilogy. What that would be epic. But God. Josh Simmons there at 31.
Yeah, love the pick if he's still there. I went with Mike Green, the edge rusher from Marshall. He had like 17 sacks or something ridiculous. I mean, he's a freak. I know he went to Marshall, like smaller school, but he has all the tools. I think the D line is good already, but you could add to that. You got him with Karlaftis and Chris Jones. I think that makes a lot of sense, and I had a lot more offensive tackles going earlier. So I'm like, let's get a guy on the defensive line, and let's wreak even more havoc. Let's add to the Spagnuolo defense, and that defense will be amongst the top again. And I think that's where they should lean on, and have Mahomes will keep him in games. So I feel like just get the best player available, and I think it's Mike Green.
Yeah, that's a good pick. So with the Eagles here, I have them going defensive tackle, shore up the D line after losing some free agents here. TJ Sanders. I heard this guy could go late first, early second. So I have him falling there, and it's grading my draft as we speak. But yeah, I think it makes sense because they lost, what's his name? Who they lose in free agency? I'm blanking right now. To the Patriots.
Milton Williams, yeah.
Milton Williams. So pair this guy up with Jalen Carter. I think he'll be good for them. And they could go the edge rusher that you just took. So, and Mike Green at 32. But I have him going TJ Sanders.
Okay. I haven't heard his name brought up much, but I feel like the Eagles will not sit at 32, to be honest. They're either trading back or they're moving up for a guy that's slipping down the draft board for them, down the draft, and that they have high on their board. So I feel like they're not going to stay at 32. But I went with Malachi Starks. You lose C.J. Gardner-Johnson, you get the best player on the board there, and he was a guy that as a freshman Kirby Smart wanted on the field. With his football instincts, football IQ, and if he's there at 32, I know I would hold out a little bit of hope. I think he could go much higher than this, but I just think it makes sense, the Georgia connection on defense, and I think he'll be a guy there. He'll be a really good football player, no matter where he goes. If he comes to us, great. I think he's going to be really good.
Yeah, I'm going early to the Bengals at 17.
Yeah,
if he slips all the way down there.
I mean. Safety. I don't know how much teams value like safeties in round one. So
yeah,
there's a couple guys. So,
But
and I feel like Eamon Worry, like people do look at combine more than like production, so that's why I went him a little bit higher, Eamon Worry. But yeah, I would love Malachi Starks at 32 if it all worked out like that.
so there you go. There you have it. There's our mock drafts. Um, yeah,
Yeah,
I'm trying to
that's the
see
mock
like
draft.
any surprises that I had you picking. I don't know. Maybe I guess Will Campbell, going all the way down, or Will Johnson, Will Campbell, Will Johnson going all the way
Okay.
down to 16. I think that's like the most surprising pick for you, him slipping that far. But you never know with the injury history that might happen.
Yeah.
So that would
Well,
be my surprise pick
yeah,
for you.
but I remember last year Quinyon Mitchell and Terry Arnold were supposed to be higher, and they didn't go to like
That's
21,
true.
22. So it's not entirely unrealistic, and he has that injury thing. So I'm like, oh, he could slip a bit.
Yeah. So I have. Yeah, seeing that was surprising. What would you say most surprising in my draft if you had to pick one?
Let's see your draft. Um, hmm, hmm, hmm. Um, Man, it's not something early, honestly. Let me just think about this. I mean, I feel like Josh Simmons could have gone higher. I know he has a little bit of an injury thing, but I think he's one of the better tackles. So I think I had him going to the Colts. So I think
Okay.
that was
Yeah.
the thing that he fell a little bit. But again, like injuries could cause a guy to slip. But I think he's going to be a stud if he stays healthy. So
Maybe
I think that
Shador at
was it.
21.
And then you had a couple guys that I don't know much about going to the Bills and the Eagles, but I'm not saying they're not going to be good. But yeah, just I personally haven't seen that much. So yeah, we'll see if they get drafted round one there. So those are my couple surprises.
Yeah. So, but yeah, we were pretty much lockstep for picks 1 through 6, right? We were
One through
locksteps.
six, and then seven, we disagreed like almost every pick.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
1 through 6, we were lockstep. Other than that, our mock draft pretty much was different. But yeah.
yeah,
So I guess we can. This was a long video, hour and 17. But if you guys did enjoy, drop a like. What did you guys agree with? What did you guys disagree with? Let us know in the comment section down below. What's
yeah.
your top 5 looking like? I want to know what everyone thinks, especially the top 3. Is Travis Hunter going 2, or is he going to fall to 3 to the Giants, or does Shador go early? Those are
Mhm.
the guess hot topics right now in the NFL draft. We don't know how it's going to pan out. We'll find out here on Thursday. But yeah, any
Yeah.
final words, Justin, before we end off this video?
Yeah, we had different opinions on Shador. I had him going earlier. You had him going later. That'll be interesting to see. But yeah, just comment. I think compared to last year's draft, I think we'll see a lot more trades. Like whether that's teams trading out altogether, going thinking about next year's draft, or trading out for a guy that's fallen on the board. But it's gonna be an interesting draft to say the least. I think there's gonna be a lot more trades. If I had to make a bold prediction for this year, but yeah, no, that's all I got to say, man. I'm looking forward to seeing John Cena this weekend. He's going to win that 17th championship, and he's going to ruin wrestling. So I'm here for
I can't wait. Stay
it.
tuned. Live on Peacock. It's on tonight and Sunday. So 2-night event. Roman Reigns and company are fighting tonight. So that should be
Looking forward
fun.
to that. That'll be fun.
But yeah, other than that, we can end off this video. So yeah, drop a like, subscribe to the channel if you're new. Go follow our socials. We got a link tree down below. And do the good stuff you guys always do. And we'll catch you guys later. Benchwire.
Out.